How Cleopatra outsmarted the greatest empire on earth. Picture this. The year is 48 BCE. The Mediterranean world trembles under the iron fist of Rome, the most powerful empire in human history. Their legions have crushed kingdoms, toppled dynasties, and bent entire civilizations to their will. But in the golden sands of Egypt, one woman dared to play chess with Caesar himself. Her name was Cleopatra VII, and she didn't just survive the Roman war machine. She made it dance to her tune. This isn't just another story about ancient royalty. This is the ultimate tale of political genius, where wit conquered swords, and charm proved mightier than armies. Today, we're diving deep into the most brilliant strategic mind of the ancient world, a woman who turned Rome's greatest strength into her greatest weapon. Let's set the stage. When Cleopatra ascended to the throne of Egypt at just 18 years old, she inherited a kingdom in crisis. Egypt was drowning in debt to Rome, its independence hanging by a thread. The Romans had already devoured Greece, conquered Gaul, and were systematically dismantling every great civilization they encountered. But here's what made Cleopatra's situation truly impossible. She was caught between two Roman titans locked in civil war. Julius Caesar and Pompey the Great were tearing the Roman Republic apart, and Egypt was forced to choose sides. Pick wrong, and her kingdom would be crushed. Pick right, and, well, she'd still be at the mercy of whichever Roman strongman emerged victorious. Most rulers would have cowered, paid tribute, and hoped for the best. Cleopatra. She saw opportunity where others saw doom. When Julius Caesar arrived in Alexandria in 48 BCE, chasing his rival Pompey, Cleopatra faced her first test. Her own brother Ptolemy XIII had seized power with Roman backing, leaving her exiled from her own capital. Any normal person would have accepted defeat. Instead, Cleopatra orchestrated one of history's most audacious political moves. She had herself smuggled into Caesar's quarters rolled up in a carpet or perhaps a linen sack. Historians debate the details, but the audacity remains breathtaking. Think about this moment. Here's the most powerful man in the world, the conqueror of Gaul, standing in a foreign palace, and suddenly a carpet unrolls to reveal the rightful queen of Egypt. It wasn't just dramatic, it was calculated genius. Cleopatra understood something that her enemies missed. Caesar wasn't just a general. He was a politician who needed legitimacy for his Egyptian campaign. By presenting herself as the rightful ruler rather than a suppliant, she transformed the entire dynamic. She wasn't begging for Roman protection, she was offering Caesar a partnership. But Cleopatra's true genius lay not in grand gestures, but in something far more subtle and devastating: information warfare. Egypt controlled the grain supply that fed Rome itself. Every year, millions of Romans depended on Egyptian wheat to survive. Cleopatra weaponized this dependency like a master strategist. She created an intelligence network that stretched from the docks of Alexandria to the forums of Rome. Every merchant ship, every grain convoy, every diplomatic mission became her eyes and ears. She knew Roman politics better than most Romans, understanding which senators could be bought, which generals harbored ambitions, and which policies would create unrest in the streets of Rome. While Roman generals thought in terms of legions and sieges, Cleopatra thought in terms of economics and information. She realized that Rome's greatest strength, its massive population and territorial expanse, was also its greatest vulnerability. The empire was utterly dependent on Egyptian grain, and she held the keys to Rome's stomach. Here's where we need to shatter one of history's most persistent myths. For centuries, Roman propaganda, later repeated by Hollywood, painted Cleopatra as a seductress who used her beauty to manipulate men. This narrative is not just wrong. It's insulting to one of history's most brilliant strategic minds. The truth: Cleopatra spoke 9 languages fluently. She was a patron of scholarship who turned Alexandria into the intellectual capital of the ancient world. She understood complex economics, military strategy, and diplomatic protocol better than virtually any ruler of her era. When she formed alliances with Julius Caesar and later Mark Antony, these weren't romantic entanglements, they were strategic partnerships between equals. She offered Caesar legitimacy in Egypt and grain for Rome. She provided Antony with naval support and financial resources for his eastern campaigns. In return, she secured Egypt's independence and expanded its territories. Cleopatra's most brilliant move was economic warfare. She understood that Rome's imperial system was built on a fundamental contradiction. The more territories Rome conquered, the more complex and expensive its administration became. Egypt's wealth made it invaluable to Rome, but that same wealth gave Cleopatra incredible leverage. She systematically made herself indispensable. Egyptian gold financed Roman campaigns. Egyptian ships transported Roman goods. Egyptian scholars advised Roman administrators. Egyptian medicines treated Roman soldiers. She wove Egypt so deeply into the fabric of Roman power that destroying her kingdom would have damaged Rome itself. Strategic pause, but her masterstroke was cultural. Cleopatra presented herself as the heir to Alexander the Great and the pharaohs, positioning Egypt not as a conquered territory, but as Rome's cultural superior. She forced Romans to come to her court, speak her language, and acknowledge her royal protocol. In a world where symbolism mattered enormously, she made Rome bow to Egypt. When Octavian finally defeated Antony and Cleopatra at the Battle of Actium in 31 BCE, it seemed like game over. The last pharaoh was trapped, her armies scattered, her kingdom about to be absorbed into the Roman Empire. But Cleopatra had one final card to play, perhaps her most brilliant move of all. Rather than submit to capture and be paraded through Rome as a trophy, she chose death on her own terms. This wasn't surrender. It was the ultimate power move. By controlling the manner and timing of her death, she denied Octavian his greatest prize and transformed herself from a defeated enemy into an eternal symbol of defiance. The asp that killed her wasn't just a snake, it was the symbol of Egyptian royalty, the uraeus that adorned the pharaoh's crown. In death, she claimed her divine status and ensured that no Roman could ever claim to have conquered the living embodiment of Egypt itself. Here's the ultimate irony. Cleopatra lost the war but won the peace. Rome absorbed Egypt's territory, but Egypt's culture absorbed Rome. Roman emperors adopted pharaonic titles, built Egyptian-style monuments, and worshipped Egyptian gods. The architecture of imperial Rome was filled with Egyptian obelisks and hieroglyphs. More importantly, Cleopatra's legend outlived the Roman Empire itself. While the names of Roman generals faded into historical footnotes, the last pharaoh became immortal. She transformed military defeat into cultural victory, political failure into eternal fame. For over 2,000 years, her story has inspired artists, writers, and leaders. She proved that intelligence could triumph over force, that strategy could overcome raw power, and that a brilliant mind could outmaneuver the greatest empire on earth. The woman who was smuggled into Caesar's presence in a carpet ended up wrapping the entire Roman world around her finger. That, my friends, is how you outsmart an empire. Cleopatra VII Philopator, the last pharaoh, the ultimate strategist, and proof that sometimes the pen really is mightier than the sword.